Hello and welcome to another A24 Vibe discussion. Tonight we will be discussing a non-A24 Oscar-nominated film from this year from a director who has directed two A24 films. That's right, you guessed it. We will be reviewing Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things, starring Emma Stone. But first, as we do with every episode, we start out with what we're drinking. Tonight I'm drinking steampunk voodoo spice rum on the rocks. Kelly, what are you drinking?
It's a new year, it's a new me, and for now I'm drinking a tall glass of cool water on the rocks. After me comes...
Hey, it's cool, Willem Gibson, resident Canadian, resident of Alaska. I'm living my best white girl life, and I'm drinking White Claws tonight.
Yeah. Kevin sadly had to play Dungeons and Dragons tonight, but we'll forgive him this once for playing D&D.
I wish he would have played me.
A24 Vibe discussion.
Let's enter into a different world of Poor Things. Poor Things is based off a 1992 novel of the same name, and it was written by a Scottish author named Alasdair Gray. Gray's novel was actually set in Glasgow, Scotland, but this film is set in the Victorian era of London. And I would say it's a coming-of-age tale of sorts about a woman named Bella Baxter and her father figure named Godwin or God. Godwin is a surgeon who is also a professor at a London university who soon hires an assistant named Max, played by Ramy Youssef, to help him with an unnamed study. It isn't long before Max meets Bella and is revealed to Max that Godwin has taken the dead corpse of a woman named Victoria and placed the brain of the corpse's infant into the corpse's brain, and henceforth brought it to life in a Frankenstein-like experiment. Bella is the result of that. So, my first question is to Kelly. I just want to start out by talking about the set design and the costume design here, because it is very notable right off the bat. This might be one of the most unique worlds that has ever been created in a film, in my opinion. So, Kelly, what did you think of the world that Yorgos Lanthimos has placed us in?
Yeah, it's stylistic as heck. So I don't think that anyone can watch this movie and not, be captivated by the world that we're in, because it's like a humorous take on a steampunk aesthetic, where one of the first things I notice in this world is we still have horse-drawn carriages, but Godwin has a already working car with a horse head on the front. So just that alone is like, there's this surrealist humor that kind of goes on throughout this movie, shown in the set design, and the fashion is so fascinating too, because it's not actual Victorian. Nothing's actually set in any kind of historical capacity, but fabrics are brought out of it, and certain kind of silhouettes are brought from that. And then in other ways, it's very modern. So it's really fresh. It's really unlike any movie. I haven't really seen a costume design quite like this before, and it just totally suits the story that's being told as well.
Would you say it's like steampunk? It touches steampunk, but I wouldn't say it's quite steampunk, right?
It's like if steampunk could become like a bubblegum hyperpop dreamscape. It's so... Because when I think steampunk, I think like colors of drab, I think more dusty, I think more cobblestone, and this is very, once we get further into the movie, this is very much like cotton candy steampunk.
Yeah, for sure. And fun fact, I guess the Victorian era officially ended on January 22nd, 1901. Yeah, it has to do with Queen Victoria's reign. And of course, Bella's previous name was Victoria. So it's like Victoria died, the Victorian era was dying, and this is the world we're placed in. And the cinematography in this film was done by Robbie Ryan. You guys won't ever guess what other film he did. He also did American Honey, he did the camera work for that. So he did all the very shaky handy cam work for that, and then also did this film. But he also did Yorgos Lanthimos' last film called The Favorite. So, he's definitely capable of many different types of cinematography for sure. And I also feel this is kind of different from the previous Yorgos Lanthimos films, where he was really going for like the perfect symmetrical shots here, and even has a use of fisheye lens in here several times. So Cole, what did you think of the cinematography, including the fact that this film starts out in black and white and it eventually turns into Technicolor?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cinematography is pretty interesting and tells a story in itself, which is what you would like to see in like good cinematography. I think the use of the fisheye lens, especially at the beginning of the film, a lot of like fisheye lens, wide angle, black and white, and then a lot of that. Obviously, there's a big change when it goes to the Technicolor, and there's a lot less fisheye lens and more of just I would call more of like a standard film cinematography look to it, right? Like the beginning is very kind of distorted and strange and weird, and I think it's kind of portraying that from kind of how Bella sees the world, where she's kind of locked in the castle, so to speak, and doesn't quite understand the world, and everything's kind of condensed, and definitely gave me that feeling. So I liked it. I thought it was very interesting cinematography. I think the overall vibes of this film, it made me think a lot about Wes Anderson films in terms of like the use of colors and
at least one Wes Anderson relation
which,
here.
Like, I'm not the biggest Wes Anderson fan, but just the general kind of vibes and like the backdrops and the use of like painted backdrops versus actual, shot on site and scene, like it's all soundstage designed, and then just the quirkiness of the world was just kind of gave me a lot of those vibes, but not a bad thing. Yeah. But some people love it.
So you like practical effects, and this film is sort of an in-between practical effects and CGI.
Very weird.
Yeah, all of these sets were built from scratch. But the backgrounds of the film were actually miniatures that they created from scratch, then CGI'd onto the film. So really like interesting way to do special effects there, which I like a lot. And yeah, I mean, the Wes Anderson comparison, I feel, again, it's like whenever we see symmetrical shots in a very colorful world, everybody tends to think of Wes Anderson when, I think Kubrick was doing that stuff before that too. Like, I think A Clockwork Orange, that's a very colorful, symmetrically shot film, but, I get that he, like, Wes Anderson really made that famous, I guess, so I get the relationship.
And Shining, too. I think, like, any Kubrick film, I can totally see, especially if there's any kind of structure.
The fairy tale, like,
Cole,
worlds and stuff.
Yeah, I'm with Cole where I don't like Wes Anderson movies, but Poor Things for me was enough of, like, this kind of like organic shapes are more introduced than I think a Wes Anderson does. Maybe that's because of these miniatures. So more, I don't want to say creative to me. Different way to describe it. More depth in a lot of these kind of shots where instead of it feeling like foreground, background, I think in Poor Things, I see like some of these scenes, it feels like there's like 25 layers, 125 layers deep. There's a lot of depth to the sets. And I think the other thing about Wes Anderson movies that irks me is almost like the framing of the shoulders of the characters when they speak. And it's funny because it's almost this kind of robotic, quirky way. And I think Yorgos Lanthimos almost kind of has a similar way about how he directs his movies too. But there's something more authentic about his to me. And I don't know how to exactly put my finger on it. And maybe the audience can help me dissect what I mean. There's a similarity and a difference between these two directors, and one irks me and the other one delights me, and I don't know exactly what it is.
Well, and so I think Yorgos Lanthimos, his big thing was his dialogue has always been so robotic and clinical in all of his films. Like, he wants the actors to deliver it very robotic and clinical, but this film completely breaks away from that, I think. I think it's very over the top of, like, loud emotions in here, especially Duncan. Like, oh my gosh, like, Mark Ruffalo just, like, Nick Caged it this whole film, I think. And so, yeah, Kelly, what did you think of, like, the dialogue in here, and why do you think, like, Yorgos Lanthimos decided to steer away from his normal style of dialogue?
Okay, so I feel that he didn't totally shy away or go away from his normal style of dialogue. By that meaning, the bluntness and upfrontness that these characters speak in is not real life. That's part of like this dreamscape too, and that's like his previous films as well. They don't talk like real life. They kind of just say what's going on in their mind. And for Bella, it makes so much sense because she's learning all of this in an adult body right here and now. But Duncan is hilarious because of the way that he's so self-conscious of being not self-conscious that it spills out of his mouth in the way that he speaks. So he's a fascinating character. All these people are, and I understand what you mean. Like there's more emotion behind all of it, but when I think about still the style of the way that they speak is still very much in that same wheelhouse to me. Just the bluntness, I think, is the
blunt, but
word
not
I'd
robotic.
use.
I think
Not robotic,
clinical,
but still
not
like
clinical.
it's not like deeply personal and emotive, I guess.
All right. I mean,
it reminded me a lot of The Lobster when it comes to the dialogue. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, this film was written by Tony McNamara, not written by Yorgos Lanthimos, but yeah, Yorgos Lanthimos always has that, like he wants his actors to have a certain style of dialogue when he coaches them during the scenes, I guess. But so yeah, I'd say like this film is sort of like a 4-quadrant film, whereas like 4 sections do it. And so this is how I'm going to break it down so that we don't go too far down a rabbit hole here. But our first section is obviously in London. And I think this is supposed to be like Bella's infantile stage. And Bella actually gets engaged to God's student Max here, but then runs off with God's lawyer, Duncan Wedderburn, played by one of my favorite actors, Mark Ruffalo. And I would say the next stage of Bella's life is in Lisbon. And that is where her and Duncan run off to, Lisbon, Portugal. So Cole, what did you think of this stage of Bella's life? Like, what do you think it represented?
I think it represented the her awakening and going, it's the scene where it obviously transitions into color, and I think this is also the part of the film that if you did not like this film, which there are a lot of 1-star reviews, I think this is probably where it came about because it goes very like hard into the sexual nature of Bella and her character in this, and this is part of her like exploratory and understanding herself, and I guess kind of her rebellious phase in terms of like kids and teenagers,
early teenage age. Yeah.
You're basically you're got a lot of pent up sexuality going on. You don't want to be near your parents. You want to go on an adventure. You find some guy that talks a sweet talk and can take you to far off lands, and you're like, fuck it, let's go. And then you just kind of goes from there. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean this part of the film, and in France later too, but this part of the film definitely has like a fair amount of sex in it, and lately we've really gotten a lot of criticism from the public about sex scenes and nudity in film, and we even have people questioning if sex scenes and nudity are necessary at all in film, and this film features a lot of sex. So, Kelly, what did you think about how this film portrayed the sex scenes?
I don't think that having sex in a movie is ever going to be anything but divisive, and I want it to stay that way. I think that if everyone was like on board or everyone wasn't, that would be an issue. I think that it's necessary for telling the story that this movie is, and it's gratuitous, but it's funny, if that makes sense. So it works for me. I'm trying to think if it was removed or not. I think it tells us so much about Duncan's character, and without all of these like scenes being shown, then what happens to him also becomes not as funny. I just think that this was a hilarious movie, and this was necessary for it. Yep. It gives us a lot of, I think something that's important in a movie is quotes, being quotable. That helps it last like a really long time, and as the years go on, we get more and more of an audience. In these sex scenes, furious jumping becomes a thing that she calls sex, and that's so funny, and that's so something that like 20 years from now, everyone who's seen this movie, I can see referencing it And then boom, that movie becomes relevant again. It's in the discourse, and it's something that keeps it alive longer than just right here, right now, or during the award season, or during the prime of these actors' lives. Having these kind of quotes and these funny moments are what's going to carry it year to year to year. And those scenes and everything that surrounds that, and it's just a part of life. And if people want to pretend that sex doesn't exist, then they are delusional. It's good to put it in a movie because it's just part of life, and that's what every movie's trying to show us. So I'm pro sex scene for this movie, and a big reason is the quotability and the comedy of it.
I looked up some interesting like stats when I was talking like the 1-star ratings. And if you break it down by like countries, like rated it 1 star, the United States, 4.2% of people so far have given it a 1 star. When you compare it to Canada, Australia, and Greece, it's like 2.2. So it's almost half. And I think it's mostly because people in the U.S. are repressed and don't like seeing sex scenes in any form of film.
That and
while
it
other
is
countries are much more.
Yeah, it's very much a feminist film, and I think in the United States currently we have a lot of alt-righters that are raging against that right now. So I definitely think that's part of it. I listened to a podcast earlier today of a guy who was libertarian who just shits all over this film, and it's because they even like mentioned socialism in here, and he thought it was too on the nose, But
you got to seize that production, the means of production.
Well, to me, it's all about the choice for an actress to appear nude in a film. I think back in the day, there were some directors that used their power to sway actresses to get nude for films, and that was horribly fucked up. But nowadays, it's almost infantilizing to assume that all actresses aren't doing these scenes of their own volition. And also, like, what is film at its core? It's a series of photographs that tell a story. It's art. Just like every nude painting that's in an art museum, nudity can be very powerful. Like, should we go into every art museum and tear down all the nude paintings because they aren't necessary? No. Art is supposed to be crude and vulgar at times, and it's supposed to invoke visceral reactions to the audience, and nudity can be a good tool to do that.
Yeah, Emma Stone has come out and talked about how, like, she was very pro like nudity and sex scenes in this film, and she's even a producer on the film.
Yeah,
and she's the one that's doing a majority of the of those scenes with Marky Mark. So, which Mark Ruffalo has come out and said that he was very nervous about doing those scenes, but apparently Emma Stone made him much more comfortable with all the comedy aspects to it. So,
and yeah, it's very necessary in this film. So. I don't know. Yeah, if you have a problem with it,
I think it definitely added to the film. I mean, it's a very, very stylized and over the top, kind of a coming to age type film, right? And that's just the way she goes,
I will definitely say when she's having her moment of self-discovery, we'll say. She's mentally like a 6-year-old girl. Yeah. And there's this whole like Freudian kind of situation that's going on. And that made me feel so weird for a while, where I was like, because it causes you as the audience to be like, is this objectification? Is this almost P word? Is this something else? Like, where does showing this depiction of sexuality stand when it's a child in an adult's body and we are watching it? It's like it opened up a can of worms, and I think I like that that's right there at the beginning, and it's like not that funny, but if you can't get past that, then you don't get the reward of everything afterwards. And everyone has to discover themselves the first time at least once, and it's kind of opens up a can of worms as well. So a little meta in that regard, and definitely weird. So weird. So
yeah, I mean, when that scene happened, it was definitely an uncomfortable scene, and I think that's what it's supposed to be all about. But man, oh man, it definitely led to like a lot of, I don't know, just not feeling okay, and a lot of interesting, like, just seeing it and then watching it and then understanding the implications that it's like a child's mind, but in, obviously Emma Stone's body, and it's very, I don't know, just strange. But you get past that part and you start getting into where she's more of an actual like teenager and then into adulthood, even from the mental state and on. It just kind of becomes funny and just such a weird movie, man. I don't know. It's just weird.
Well, that's why we love Yorgos Lanthimos, in my opinion. He makes really weird stuff, and I love it. So, the next section of the film, I would say, is the boat section of the film. And that's when Duncan kidnaps Bella in a suitcase after Bella has relations with another man. And when Bella wakes up, she is on a boat headed for Greece. And this was Duncan's way of saving the relationship, I guess, which, I mean, he openly says, like, I was going to leave you somewhere. And it was the second he realized she wasn't all his that he was like, I need to put you in a suitcase and put you on a boat so you cannot go anywhere. And I think that's actually a really wonderful commentary on these types of men, I would say. And Cole, what did you think of Duncan at this point in the film?
Duncan is like the character you love to hate, because he's just so obnoxious and just like such a tool, but at the same time it's Mark Ruffalo portraying the person who I like love Mark Ruffalo, and he's doing it in such like a weird comedy, like funny way of going about it, of just Mark Ruffalo-esque, but he's just kind of a tool. I thought it was very funny, especially because that was the exchange, or the person that Bella was like some dude that she met in the park that was playing chess and was talking about soft skin, right? That was like right before he kidnapped her. Was that the person that she was talking about?
I think so.
Was talking about? Yeah, and it's just like that exchange where he's just like, did you let him have sex with you? And she's like, no, he just
tattooed her inner thighs.
Yeah. It was just like, just all around such a just weird interaction, and everyone is, the way that everything's delivered again just reminds me of The Lobster, and how Bella's just so almost like emotionless and just like matter of fact of like, no, this is normal. I went to the park, met a guy who played chess, and he said, you have the softest skin. And I was like, well, actually, the softest skin is going to be my inner thigh. You should touch that, and we should determine which one is softer, so we can determine if I do have the softest skin. And then Mark Ruffalo, who's just a somewhat normal person in this world, is just like, what the absolute fuck are you talking about? This is not what you do. This is not proper society.
But at first he was kind of anti-proper society, but like in private. But then when he's in public, he's very self-conscious and narcissistic, and so he wants to appear like he's part of proper society.
And he encounters on the ship then a character who actually is anti-proper society, and when he mentions it, Mark Ruffalo, after telling Bella, you need to act more proper in public, this guy says, I'm not all about that. Mark Ruffalo looks at him and he's just like, yeah, me neither, actually.
That's Harry Harry Astley, played by Gerard Carmichael, who is a comedian.
Correct. Yep.
And that was actually going to be my next question. You know,
so good.
Harry and Martha are the two that they meet on the boat. Martha is played by a woman named Hannah Shigula. And I would say this part of the film is really Bella's initial exploration of philosophy and like kind of coming into her own ways of thinking. The beginnings of it, at least. Kelly, what do you think the philosophies that Harry and Martha represented?
Yeah, so this is the college age, the like late college, start of grad school kind of situation, I'd say. Martha reminded me of Barbie, when Barbie sits on the bench and just has a moment with an older woman and just says, you're beautiful. She says, I know. And they just share an exchange, like a knowing glance. That's what Martha is to me. She's that woman on the bench in Barbie, that she represents a sisterhood and a passing of the torch to me. I think that they're very like-minded, even with Bella's warped, crazy experiment mind. There's this, I like that they have that interaction together. And then Harry, of course, was our nihilist, like he says so himself. And I think that everyone that I know has gone through or stayed in a nihilist phase. You need to have that friend in your life, and you will have that friend in your life if you have the ability to broaden your horizons.
Yeah. He says, like, we're a fucked species. Like, socialism, capitalism, it doesn't matter. We're a fucked species. And then...
Yeah,
well,
and he says, I wanted to show you bad things. I wanted to hurt you so you could see... Like, I just loved all that.
Yeah. And, like, also Martha, she said, like, she had not had sex in 20 years. And that was the other thing where... when Bella meets her, she, like, realized, oh, like, you don't have to, like, be a super sexual person either. Like, she was enjoying it at that point, but, like, she was realizing, like, oh, like, you don't need to, you can just be alone and, like, not have sex and be fine. And that's what I think Martha's character also represented, too, you know?
Yeah, it didn't need to define you, right?
Yeah.
Because that was kind of what Bella's definition, or what had defined her in the previous section, was basically just a lot of what was it, frantic jumping or something, or what was, is that the
furious jumping?
Furious jumping.
And Duncan would have been happy to keep her that way, like have her stay that way. He says, "You're starting to lose your cute way of speaking because she starts learning more words and reading books."
Yeah.
Well, I think that's like the start of the boat is like her initial, like, just getting to college, and then it's like the douchebag guy kind of shows his true colors, and then she moves on, and that's like, I feel like the end of the boat is like her at the end of college too, in a way, a college age or something. And well, this is also like her realizing how much suffering there is in the world, because as you pointed out, Harry, when they stop in Alexandria, he kind of shows her like this sandbox of people in poverty in Alexandria, and she then goes back to her room to see Duncan passed out drunk on the bed with his gambling winnings strewn about, and then she takes all the money, goes to one of the boat workers, and asks the boat worker to deliver the money to them, and he, of course, the boat worker does not do that. But Cole, like, what did you think of this gesture and the end of this part of this section of the film?
This section of the film reminded me of, again, this whole film is just like periods of life that I feel like most people have gone through. And this period of life is, again, the point where everyone realizes, like, oh my God, there's great atrocities happening across the world. We need to stop them. And then, like, this section reminded me so much of that movement in 2012, I think, the Coney. Yes. Where it's just like, everyone's like, we got to stop child soldiers, and it's like, yeah, that's terrible. What a terrible thing. How did we not know about this? We're gonna stop this. We're gonna donate money. We're gonna picket. We're gonna do all this protesting and stuff. And then it turns out the dude who ran it has had like a, something, mental breakdown. No one knows where the money's going. Everything's kind of a sham. And reality, we're not going to help any of these kids. Like, it's still going to happen. And it's one of those things that it sucks, and that, that's how the world operates. But, you can't just fix all the problems. You're not going to be able to fix the problems, even if you think you can when you were, much younger, going through that phase of, picketing and all that stuff. Not to say that protesting doesn't help or do things. I think it's a very important thing to express and has brought a lot of change, but you're never going to change everything to be perfect. There's always going to be things that there's nothing you can do about. And there's also going to be times when, people want to help, like Bella did, and she took all the money and she wanted to give all the money to all the poor people and help them. And that money just immediately gets misappropriated by people who decide that they need it more. And like that, surprise, surprise, that happens all the fucking time, whether it's the government, whether it's, whoever. It always happens. Money always corrupts everything. So it's just the way the world works. And so I thought that scene was just a very funny, just quick kind of turn of just that learning experience. So I was really hoping that they would kind of come back around with it a little bit, where Bella would realize that that those dudes just took the money and didn't do anything with it, but sadly never got that satisfaction.
Yeah. For sure. Kelly, any last comments on this part of the film?
I think Cole summed it up when he said she gives all this money away and it's immediately misappropriated. And that's a case of, because what is that? Is that dramatic irony when the audience knows something the players don't?
Yep.
So that was just like, all the chef's kisses, and because we're just like, we know what's happening, and she's very proud of herself and stays that way. And then just to continue to talk about just the money aspect and how meaningless it is in kind of a naive life like that, by the time she gets to Paris, she's like, well, now we get to know what it's like to be poor. What a great adventure this will be. And it's just phenomenal. Like, very good. It's very much an Odyssey story, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
With how many places we travel, how many events that we retell. It's, yeah.
And fun fact here, I do like, I just want to mention the dance scene. Like, that was such a awesome dance scene when Bella was first hearing the music. And so the composer of this film was Jerskin Fendrix, and I loved how his composition, it definitely started out like childlike with all those plucking of strings and everything, and as we go on it gets grander and grander as if you are growing up right on film. And he was actually in the film, in the dance scene, playing a made-up instrument that he just decided to create for that scene. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Another cool.
It was very like Dr. Seuss looking instruments and Dr. Seuss sounding horns to me. The way that song starts, honk, 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 bum, 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 bum. Yeah. It was awesome. I loved that scene. I've seen that floating around on the internet since watching the movie, and it made me just want to watch the whole thing
she
over
had
again.
some moves. Like, I think Emma Stone definitely had some moves in that scene. Like, it was kind of crazy and erratic, but like, I mean,
I didn't even see Emma Stone at this point. At this point, that was just Bella Baxter.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad she got her dancing shoes on. For Mark Ruffalo, yeah, so she's Bella and he's Mark Ruffalo in my eyes. But for that specific shot where you think it's just going to be her dancing alone on the dance floor, he's back there and he's waxing poetic about himself, his favorite topic, sees she leaves, wants to possess her again. And there's this cool camera shot where we're watching her from a distance, and then he comes traversing into the scene, cutting off our own vision and heading towards her, dancing and looking around, making sure everyone sees that he's gonna make sure they know that's his dance partner. Someone on Facebook commented, like, I love dancing scenes in movies that are actually fights. Like, that's how this one was too. Okay, I'm done.
No, totally. Like, that's I was gonna say. It looked like they were fighting. Like, he was trying to keep her like not going too crazy on the dance floor, but then at the same time was doing his own dance moves. So like, it was a hilarious back and forth there.
This whole entire movie, it like, I don't know, maybe I just have face blindness with Emma Stone, but if you told me that was Emma Stone as Bella Baxter in this film, I would have been like, there's no way, that's not her. That doesn't look anything like her. And then I go, but obviously it is her. And I'm like, I still look like side-by-side comparisons. And I'm like, this is not the same person. Like, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, the whole entire time, I never saw Emma Stone. Emma Stone is usually like redheaded, quirky character that kind of has like more like dark humor, which is similar in a sense, but at the same time I'm just like,
and
this
she
is
always
not
has
her.
a specific kind of smile that she never did as Bella Baxter.
No.
So I think that's what really made her not look like how she normally does to me.
No.
Well, and we're in this age of like method acting and everything, and I listened to a interview with her, and she said she did literally zero preparation for this film. She learned all the lines and got into character, like, and would go off from character when she left the set. We're in this age where people are fully embraced in character 100% of the time leading up to the film, and there's so much like Jared Leto is sending rats to people on the set of Suicide Squad. That's like a reference from 8 years ago, but it's just like, well, and then there's Emma Stone, who will like pull off this amazing performance, and she doesn't need to do that. She's just a good actress, and it's
that's like acting. Like, I don't know what her background is, but that's like if you were like a stage actor, and that's like where all this comes from originally. So
yeah,
I think to be able to do that means probably your acting chops are a little stronger.
Yeah, well,
hear that, Jared Leto?
Yeah, I'll tell Daniel Day-Lewis that he's not as good as Emma Stone. So, yeah. Well, the next.
I mean, I just genuinely think that Daniel Day-Lewis thinks he like lives in like the 1920s and is an oil baron. I think that's just genuinely who he thinks he is.
Well, he's been in so many different roles, though. But
I know.
So yeah, the next part of this film takes place in Paris as Bella and Duncan are kicked off the boat for insufficient funds. And this, of course, is where Bella ditches Duncan after realizing what an immature narcissist he is, and she joins a brothel. And Kelly, why do we go this route on Bella's journey? Why do you think what do you think the brothel scenes represented for Bella?
Well, Bella explains it pretty obviously. She says she needs money and she's willing to have sex to get it. So, good thing that profession exists for her. And also, what else can she do to make money? In even fake Victorian world at this time, there's nothing else that is available to her. So, I think she explains it pretty on the nose.
She's just trying to put herself through school.
Yeah. Do you think the choice to go this route, like, do you think it was a comment on sex work at all?
Yeah, it couldn't not be.
Okay, explain.
Like I said, what else is she supposed to do to get quick money?
Well, I mean, I think we're kind of in an age of, like, sex positivity, too. You know, some people are saying sex work is actually, like, a very feminist act, too. And could it be, like, her gaining control of her sexuality and looking at sex as something that can be unemotional and casual and, like, having full power over it, you know, for
well, what
sakes?
I like is that she does, when she actually has a client that wants to, like, basically just use her instead of connect with her and have sex like how she expects to have sex, she's like, let's reframe this whole scenario, and I'm gonna reframe the way that I do my work by getting to know my client a little bit first, because that makes it better for both of us. And so she takes ownership in that. I really love the scene when she's like, why don't we get to choose the person instead of the other way around? Because then they would know that we want to spend time together, and wouldn't that enhance the whole experience? And it's like, yes, of course it would. So it exists to me in this weird world where, Eric, you're saying, like, in today's society, we have a very different way of looking at sex work, and that's just some of society is feeling that way. But almost in this fakey Victorian world, we think about it the way that Duncan thinks about it and labels her forever as a whore. And that's the worst thing any woman could ever do. So it's both of those things, I think, playing at once on how culture at large just looks at that line of work. But I think that they did a fun job in the movie. They used it to raise just, like, really obvious, in-your-face questions about the whole thing, and then just kind of shrugged their shoulders about it. So it's another one of those things where it's like, it's a problem that's in your face and you just move on with it anyways, and it helps some, it hurts others, and c'est la vie, because you're in Paris.
Yeah. Cole, what did you think of this part of the film?
I thought this part of the film was kind of the point where Bella is taking control of her life, in terms of she's out of Godwin's control. She left with, Mark Ruffalo, Duncan, and she realizes that he was controlling her as well. And at this point, she's gonna essentially move on from those people and take control of her life. And the only thing she knows how to do at this point in her life was basically sex. So she becomes a sex worker, but she turns it into a positive for herself and uses it, and makes some good money to the point where she's able to go to school to feel like she's back at home and make some friends, and starts making a life for herself in a way by utilizing her abilities, whether that's sex work or anything else. I mean, if you're good at something and you want to make money off of it, why not? So I thought it was a good part of the film, an interesting part of the film, especially with the I liked all of the set designs for that area. Was just very, very phallic and very just over sexual, which is pretty funny.
And the
then,
Madame Swiney.
Yeah.
I need my 10 franc,
She was phenomenal.
Yeah.
She was fantastic.
Played by
And
Catherine Hunter, who was in Harry Potter, too.
Yeah, she just likes to bite people,
Yeah.
You gotta get your fix. But, and then
Macbeth we were talking about that she is in. Sorry, Cole.
No, you're good. And then, again, the scene with, the friend that Bella makes, and I think they're yelling at Duncan.
Yep.
Yeah. And they're talking, he's calling her a whore or whatever, and then she yells, like, seize the production, or what's the saying for
seize
all,
the
like,
means of production. Well,
Yeah,
Toynette introduces her to socialism, pretty much, and,
yes, that's what it is.
That is also something, you get introduced to socialism, well, I guess because the American public school system is different, most of us are really introduced to socialism in college, so I do feel like this is, like, the end of college for her, for sure.
Yeah, but
she says,
I love that.
we have become our own means of production.
Yeah, yep.
That's what it is.
And that's like honestly a way that sex workers look at it too, though. It's a very actual, like, that's what I was, I think, trying to hint at earlier. What people are saying about this part of the film and how it portrays sex work is like, it's actually, it can be a very empowering thing if you use it that way, but. There's also the very, very dark sides of it too. So I'm not gonna.
It's
put a shadow.
It's a dreamscape in a way.
Yeah.
It's a dreamscape in the way it works out for her, and it shows a lot of kink behavior, like in a really positive light, which I did appreciate, and I didn't mean to let that part go unnoted as well.
And
that was positive.
First sexual experience with a woman right there too, and Toynette, and she comes back later too. So let's talk about the ending. So the last part of the film is Bella coming back home after she hears that God is sick, and Duncan is now in an insane asylum, by the way, and he has pissed away all the money he stole from Bella in France. And Bella almost finally gets married to Max before Duncan and a man named Alfie Blessington, played by Christopher Abbott, who was the truck driver in A Most Violent Year and in It Comes at Night. A24 alum, along with a lot of other people in this film, but actually no, just Yorgos Lanthimos, really. But either way, they appear at the wedding. Alfie reveals that he is Bella's husband from her previous life when she was named Victoria. We then figure out that Victoria was pregnant with his kid and threw herself off a bridge. At least she is. She now fully realizes this, and Bella then leaves the ceremony with Alfie to join him at his estate. So, Cole, why do you think she chose to do this? Why would she leave the wedding, go with him to his estate?
I think she was just interested in finding out who her mother was at this point. She did not know who her mother was. She had no idea of basically who she was, and by who I mean, I guess, like, her family, right? Like, where did she come from? What drove her mother to this point to where her mother took her life? Even and essentially took Bella's life too, right? Like, in a normal, not weird Frankenstein steampunk world, if the mother dies, so does the child that she's carrying, and that would be the end of it. So I think she wanted to know what was the reason behind her mother committing suicide and taking her life at the same time. And obviously that's a very heavy question that she now has a chance to get answers to. I think she cares for Max, but I think it's more of like a convenience thing at that point, right? Because she doesn't really know him that well either. Because when they were together, she was essentially still like a child going into preteen age, right? And she had to go and travel and experience all these things and become the woman that she is now in the film. And she didn't really have that big of a connection to Max. She just more had a connection to Godwin and, missed home. And then when this guy shows up, she's like, it's time to get the answers to something that I never thought I would. So. Yeah.
Very fair. Kelly, what do you agree, or what do you think about this part of the film?
Yeah, I like how Cole put it, and it raised another, topic of the movie I hope that we will discuss. But my original thought behind it was that why wouldn't you want to just go explore what your previous life was if you could? Before you decide to settle down with somebody, if you have that opportunity, if you have one chance, one opportunity, would you all let it just slip right past you, or would you take it? So I like that she does that, but I like how Cole, you said it as find out what your mother's life was, because that is what's happening. And it's like both, and it's interesting. I if she didn't do that, then she would spend her marriage with Max always kind of wondering, well, what if I seized that moment and just saw what could have happened. So she removes any hesitation of doubt before she ties the knot, which I think is something that should be done as well. So it kind of represented that, but to explore your mother's life like that, literally live in her body and see what she went through. And there's a lot of dark jokes about suicide, which I think the world has been kind of lacking for the last like 10 years or so, for good reason, but also when it can be joked about and talked about in this kind of way. I think it was kind of refreshing when he explains all that he can give to her and she acknowledges that, all those things that caused me to take my life before. So the fact that these kind of conversations can even be had was interesting. And it's this almost like generational trauma theme that I was kind of picking up, both from her, and Godwin says a lot of interesting things about how his father treated him, and how Godwin's big problem with Bella is that he got too attached to her. And this is with your children being experiments, but there's so much that Godwin struggles with, like coming to terms with what being a parent, being a child means for him, and then you see it happening through Bella too. And it's weird that I can get all this and start to feel warm and fuzzy, and then I think about what amalgamations of experiments these characters even are, and it's like, this is so over the top ridiculous. Why is it making me feel all these things while I laugh through misty eyes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think it was like her looking back at the world that came right before her, which was the middle of the Victorian era. And that was when Britain was still colonizing everywhere. And I feel like her husband was, he was a soldier and a colonizer for sure. She then throws chloroform in Alfie's face when he was about to chloroform her, breaks free from the estate and gets to go home. And I almost feel like this is like the ending of the Victorian era, leading into the next 20 years of early feminism in Great Britain, because actually, so the Victorian era ended in 1901, and then women got the vote in the UK in 1918. And so I feel like it's actually just the ending of one era and like leading up to that part of feminism right there. On a grander scale, that's what I feel like it is, but also personally just thinking of Bella's tale herself, you guys, hit the nail on the head for sure. So, and then, she finally decides to settle back in London with Max and her friend from the brothel, Toinette. And Godwin sadly dies, and Bella gets to be there in his arms as he dies. And, okay, I guess we didn't talk much about Willem Dafoe's character, Godwin. We did a bit. Cole, give me a little, what did you feel about Godwin, especially as he died at the end? Like, I feel like we go away from this character and come back. But what did you think of him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he is he's the reason in the ending of the whole movie, and his character is such a weird, unique one. Like he's obviously gone through a lot in his life.
Got branded on his balls and is a eunuch. Yep.
Yeah, he's a eunuch. His father tortured him. He nailed his thumbs to a thing to see if the bones would grow, and he's got scars all over his face. He is like the epitome of Frankenstein's monster, but also Frankenstein. Like he is both. He is what essentially society is. Whenever you think of Frankenstein, they're like, oh, well, it's actually Frankenstein's monster. Well, in this one, it's both. It's it's Godwin. I will say that with the ending, I liked it, but I was also, it was not what I thought it was going to be, especially with the Bella finds the brain transfer plans and all this stuff, and I was like, this is going to be awesome. She's going to take Godwin and put his brain in Alfie, and they're going to continue to be a happy family, and they're not going to have any cancer. Well, then he dies, and he dies of cancer, and then she throws Alfie's brain in a goat and a goat's brain in Alfie, and they which was funny. but I was really hoping he would like continue on, but it's also one of those things where cancer is somewhat like almost like an inevitable, where it seems like everyone seems to get cancer nowadays, and we have no idea why, and there's not really a good way to cure it. And even the guy who can bring people back to the death and is like the greatest scientist in this magical world couldn't even figure it out. So
yeah,
this is just it's such a weird movie. This and like I like the steampunk aspect of it too, but the way I was thinking about it was, there's always those people who are like, what if Tesla was the guy and not Edison? And this is the world that I thought would happen if Tesla was the guy. It's like Tesla punk, where it's just over the top. There's not a lot of steam, just a lot of colors, a lot of electricity, and Willem Dafoe eating and then doing weird burp bubbles that I could not figure out.
I love
what
that.
was happening.
His whole
GI
digestive
bubbles.
system is not inside him.
Yeah.
So he hooks himself up to this whole big machine of like, what is that? Is that a barometer? What's used to like tell the weather on boats and stuff? Like, it's like all these weird little twisted ends. But that burp killed me every single time it was on the screen. And the first one with Max/Ramy just watching the bubble go up into the sky.
He's like, oh?
And then, but like, yeah, they never really acknowledge it. It's just a part of his life.
He's kind of an odd dude, and that's what he does. You know, that's So Kelly, final thoughts on the ending, and I think did you have another thing you wanted to touch on?
No, the other thing was the generational trauma. I mean, there's so much that we can like continue to talk about with this movie. It, like I said, it's just like a massive epic. But for that ending, I am with Cole, where it's like even in fantasy, sci-fi land, cancer still is going to kill. In this case, Frankenstein's monster / God himself. The fact that he's called God by Bella and all these people, and even Max's first talk with him, they reference the fact that he's God. He creates life, and even that is killed by cancer. It's just like, it's these like kind of heavy topics all throughout the movie that it's through so many layers of surrealism and like ridiculousness, but like in a good way. I don't know. It's a refreshing way.
You said it was like Salvador
think
Dali
about all of these topics. Yeah,
after the film,
because it's like it's both silly and there's a darkness to it. There's a realness. There's like the whole. I was talking to Eric about this at dinner, but that whole surrealist art movement happening after World War I, where all these artists are like, well, the whole entire world is wrecked forever. Things are never ever going to be the same. Nothing makes sense. Anyone's capable of killing anyone at any time. I don't know how to put this into art, but here's what it feels like to me. And I think that, like everything, both that movement never ended, but we're on kind of this century path. So if 100 years later, this is our take, I think, by another movement of artists that are surrealists, to try to wrap your mind around what's happening in this world, especially in like post-COVID world and wars happening all over and lots of awful things going on top of mental health crises. And I think that, and sexism, racism, all of these kind of problems, huge problems. How do you make any sense of it? You make a giant surrealist epic like this, I think, is one way to try to make sense of nonsense, is to make more nonsense. But a thinker. Did that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree. Yeah, that's. I'll just leave it there. I think I agree, and I also feel like this film was kind of like a dark Barbie. That is what my sister's friend, after we watched this film, said. That this was sort of like a dark Barbie. Like in the film Barbie, she starts in her Barbie world, goes out and gets her whole brain turned upside down, basically, and goes on from there. So I almost feel like this is. Can I say an even better version of Barbie? Maybe I'll get shit on for that, but that's okay. All right, so shall we give final ratings?
We shall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, hot take, it is better than Barbie.
Okay, thank you for saying that. I
That's
was like,
not the wrong
I just said it. I was like, is anybody gonna agree with me?
Oh my
I don't know.
God.
All right.
And Barbie's good too. They
Barbie's
can both
good too,
be good.
but-
That's the thing.
Cole, do you want to start out with your rating? A through
Yeah,
F.
sure.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say on normal A24 on the rocks, we usually give it A+ through F- scale of ratings, and we will do that for this film too. So Cole, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a lot there's a lot to say about this film, and we've said a lot, and there's still a lot more to say about it. It is such a weird, unique world that I, at times, am just, like, enthralled by, but also, at other times, I kind of, like, disgusted and hate it in a certain way. Like I said, I'm not a Wes Anderson fan. I've seen pretty much all of his films, hoping that I'll like understand the feelings that people get towards them. I feel like I always have maybe the reverse of it, and there's times where this film, some certain things did annoy me with some of the choices, but overall, I thought the story was extremely unique, extremely well done. The cast did a phenomenal job. I mean, everyone, like Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, Ramy Youssef, they all crushed it in their performances. And I feel like all of their performances are not what they're known to do in like their normal acting chops. Like Emma Stone, like I said, if you told me that, if I saw this film and I did not know the cast list beforehand, I would not have guessed that was Emma Stone. I would have thought it was some like Eastern European actress that I was not familiar with, but was like well known over like Poland or something. But she did such a good job. And then Mark Ruffalo, he's the Incredible Hulk just hanging out, but he does a phenomenal job. Also, Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, and Willem Dafoe are all in Marvel movies. Just realized that.
I mean, okay,
Yeah,
Emma Stone, she's definitely
Gwen
taken a foray away from, Superbad, like The Favorite and La La Land. She got a lot of respect. And then, Mark Ruffalo does have a large career outside of the Hulk. But yeah.
Until you're in a Marvel movie, you're not really a movie star.
Yeah, we got Gwen Stacy, Bruce Banner, and Green Goblin all in the film. You know it's gonna be but they all did such a good job, and they're all such good actors, and all of the scenes in the sets were very funny, very dark tones. Obviously this film is not one that I'm going to recommend to everyone because of some people's great aversion to like the sexual nature of films, and I think this film will make a lot of people uncomfortable, but I think it's also a good way where it kind of shows you the uncomfortable nature of certain things, like going through puberty and raising a child and just going through all these emotions in such a strange, fantastical way. I will say in the Barbie comparison, I would watch this before I'd watch Barbie, but I would watch Barbie with other people before I watch this with other people. Like that's kind of the way I would feel. Like if I'm sitting and I'm like, guys, we gotta watch this movie, and I'm with a big group, it's gonna be Barbie. But if I'm with like a select group of people that I know appreciate the A24 vibes or something like that, be like, this is definitely what we need to watch. Overall, I like this movie. Wasn't the biggest fan of The Lobster. I kind of gave my review of that, so I'm not the biggest fan of this director, but I will say this is his best film that I've seen, and he hasn't really made necessarily a lot of bad films. So I'm going to give this an A-24. I think it's very good, very unique, very strange, but there's certain things that I think other people definitely would love that I am not that in love with, just in terms of certain choices or aesthetics that was done in this film.
Does it deserve Best Picture?
I mean, Oppenheimer's nominated, right?
Yep.
So no.
Okay, so you're saying Oppenheimer's better. All right.
Yeah, but I do think that this is, I will say, like, maybe, like, I don't know, I didn't even realize this was adapted from a book. I was going to say this is the best original screenplay. Apparently it's adapted from the book. I'll say it's the best adapted whatever. Isn't that a category in Oscars?
Best adapted screenplay. Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be. So it definitely deserves...
Oppenheimer's adapted from a book, too, though.
Well, whatever.
And
Oppenheimer
Barbie
can win
is
best.
also going to be in the best, or is in the best adapted screenplay category. So,
What did they adapt Barbie from? Just like the idea of Barbie?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Mattel
I
was
guess.
like, no, you adapted this. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes those always get weird. Also, I feel like if you win Best Picture, maybe you don't win every other category, because I think Oppenheimer does a very good job just overall. It's like just such a crazy film and beautiful film, and so is this one. But this one, I don't think it necessarily is like Best Picture quality, just because, again, I have certain
Too weird. Yeah.
biases, and it's also very weird.
Yeah.
And for a weird movie to win Best Picture, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, I was surprised when Parasite won, which I love Parasite, but again, that was not an English film. That's never happened before. But I think, we're kind of trending in a direction where we're starting to realize that, like, hey, there's a lot of weird shit out in the world, and there's some stuff that's like amazing. Maybe we should give that stuff credit versus just another Marvel movie. But I do like this movie a lot, but A minus 24 is going to be my.
Pardon me, but Oppenheimer's a DC movie because Christopher Nolan's in the DC universe. But
You're right. Scarecrow. How can I forget?
Scarecrow stars on it. Yep.
all right,
How can
Kelly,
I forget?
Your rating.
Albert Einstein,
please.
Superman's biggest enemy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, what am I doing? Sorry.
rating, please.
Okay. I think I've talked a whole lot already about this, and I think my magnum opus about my full thoughts on the movie is that surrealist soapbox that I had. I think that it's just it represents a new era of artists, and this is that version of art if you're given a whole bunch of money and a bunch of amazing actors to tell your art. And I think that it's really kind of special that it happened. They're on the front of everyone's performance, set design, cinematography, theme, script, all A's to me. The way that it makes me, I think that my two qualms every single time we review a movie is, does it make me feel? Does it make me think? And I think it's very obvious with this movie. It very much impacted me on both of those fronts. So we're in an A+ territory. But here's the thing, and Cole kind of already touched on it too. The downside of this movie for me is that it went full tilt in its flavor. So I kind of was like, I wish that it was like a movie that was more accessible to just like the average populace, because I want to try to share it with more people and talk about it. Because for me, I just think it scratched an itch. It was something that like I kind of like needed. If that makes sense. It was a therapeutic movie, and it would be the best kind of therapy, which is one that makes you laugh while you're thinking about stuff. So all that's so good. So the fact that I don't think that the way that it impacted me, I think that I might have been like a target audience member in that kind of regard to hear that story. And I wish that it was done in a way where I feel like I could share it with more people and they could have that kind of experience as well. And then at the same time, I think of that as my qualm. And why should they try it? Why should you take a movie and try to make it like more accessible and more appealing to everyone? So it does both of those things, and it creates a little friction in my mind. So it is almost totally up there. I love so many things about it. It's a A24. I really liked it. I would recommend it to the right kind of person.
Awesome.
And I think it should win awards for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, and do you think it should win over Oppenheimer for Best Picture?
For me, I would like to see it, yeah.
Okay. And so like if you were a voter for the Academy, you would vote for this one over Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, so on and so forth, Barbie.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I think that this movie, it's more unique, and I think it shows a lot of new ways that we can go about movie making, and I think it raises a lot of questions about today and the world that we are in today, and like I had kind of said, the post-COVID world, and the amount of questioning that's going on in a lot of people's minds. I think that this movie finds a refreshing way to address all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if they looked back 50 years from now and they saw this movie, it would really tell them a lot about society at the time at large. And I think that that's something cool that a movie can do. Not to say that these other movies don't raise the same things. I think that we're in a really good year for movies, obviously. If this is the competition that we're in. But this one, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't win, but I would love if it did, because I just feel like it's got the right tone and the right creativity.
Yeah. And I mean, going from there, I'll start with my review, kind of comparing this to the other. When I said it was Dark Barbie, what I love about this film is that it is art for art's sake. We were saying everything's almost perfect to a T about this film, with the art direction, the set design, the costume design, the acting. But you know what I like about this more than Barbie? It's not trying to sell me anything. Barbie is trying to sell us Barbies. Mattel is fully backing that film. They have GM strewn about through that whole film. There's product placement everywhere. It's trying to sell you stuff.
True.
This film
Facts.
is trying to sell movie tickets, which it probably won't even get its money back. But it's, that's why it's arts for art's sake, and I love how weird it is. Like, Yorgos Lanthimos, you beautiful little freak. Give me more. Be freaky. Let your freak flag hang high. Give me more Mark Ruffalo. Because I love Mark Ruffalo. He's such a hot piece of ass, and I just, I need more of everything in this film over and over again. Do I give it an A+, though? I think that this did have a little lag in the middle of the film. That's my only bit, is that this was a 2-hour, 20-minute film. I felt like maybe it would have been better just taking off like 10 minutes or so, because I just felt like a little lull in the middle of the film, and that's just me as a moviegoer, where I just felt like we had this joke throughout the film, and it was a little overplayed. I would say towards the end of the Paris scenes, just Bella being Bella was kind of the joke, and I just felt like it was a little bit overplayed. That being said, I'll still give it an A. I mean, I would say out of all the films nominated this year, and if I was a voter, I would vote for probably Oppenheimer to win. Even though that's a 3-hour film, I actually was just fully engaged that whole film. I don't know how Christopher Nolan did it, but he did. And it's definitely worth seeing for everybody. And you know what? I want the general public to come more into Yorgos Lanthimos' little, like, freak flag circle. Like, I think the general public needs to come to us. We don't need to come to them, Like that, I don't get why, like, I have to change myself from being so weird all the time. Why don't you guys all get weird like me, right?
That's right. You shouldn't have to dilute yourself.
Exactly.
No one dilute themselves. We hate polite society.
Yeah. Fuck polite society.
Socialism.
All right. Good night, everybody. And you can find us on A24 on the Rocks. And please rate and subscribe.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening and for being a poor little thing.